Okay, let's go over a few things. There have been lots of theories addressing FNAF's biggest mystery recently, such as FNAF's theory, ID's fantasy, and even MatPat's timeline. However, I think that there is really one mystery that is definitively Five Nights at Freddy's biggest mystery, because without this event, none of the games would have happened, and that mystery is why did William Afton start killing? Today, I'll be going over my reason why I think that Afton started his murderous journey, and several other smaller theories that fall into place because of this. Just for the record, I'll be labeling each part of the story at the top left of the screen to indicate their importance. Theory being my strongest evidence for what I believe the story is actually trying to tell us. Possible for things that could be possible but there's no strong evidence or it isn't important to the lore. And headcanon, which is things that I've simply added in for the purpose of making the story cohesive or interesting, with no real evidence or importance to the lore. But with that being said, let's begin. Our theory begins at the very beginning of the FNAF story we see, or what we don't. Many theorists like to place the pizzerias in order, like a linear timeline. However, I believe there is one location that doesn't fit in the same way as the rest of them. Let's take a look at its name, Sister Location. On a family tree, a sister would be next to a brother, not below, like a linear path. So although there isn't strong evidence for it, I do believe that Sister Location would make sense to take place at more or less the same time as the first ever location, before the first killing by William, Fredbear's Family Diner. And let me be clear, Hand Unit, as ID points out, says that Sister Location is after the closure of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but that's just when Michael goes there. The game Sister Location probably takes place when ID suggests, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but go watch the video. But I think that the location itself has been around for much, much longer. So I suspect that Sister Location has existed at the same time as Fredbear's Family Diner, but let's put it this way. Fredbear's coming to the end of its lifespan, Henry wanted to make a new location, with the combination of the best of both his and William's ideas. A smaller, non-springlock version of Freddy and Bonnie, as well as Chica and a new character, Foxy. But William could see how successful this would be, and in his fear and jealousy, starts secretly working on a project of his own, just in case Henry ever got too popular, deliberately excluding Henry's signature creations and designs so that William would have nothing to be claimed. This would also explain a few things, like why is Sister Location connected to Fredbear's? If it was a long time after Fredbear's closure, then there would be no reason to connect the two. It would also explain why William hadn't started killing yet. Fredbear's was still operational, Henry and William were still working together, and Charlie was still alive. It takes place before everything starts going wrong. Anyway, Afton begins running Sister Location underneath his family home, the elevator shaft locked in his office, hidden from his family. We know he spent countless hours inside his office, neglecting his family duties to work on his project. But why? I believe that William began to grow jealous of Henry, seeing the popularity of Chica's party world and how much he could improve the popularity of the upcoming Freddy's, beyond William's control. Afton and Henry had always been rivals, but Afton didn't ever want Henry to overtake him. So like any jealous rival would, he began working on his own project, secretly underground in his own home, while also working on Freddy's with Henry and running Fredbear's, an underground rental service called Circus Babies Entertainment and Rental. It probably started as a rental because a full restaurant is both expensive and it would attract a lot of attention nearby, and he didn't want Henry finding out about his secret. Going back to something I said earlier, we know for a fact that Afton neglected his family for this project, locked in his office, endangering his relationship with his wife. So, one day while Afton wasn't in the house, Mrs. Afton decides to find a way into the office, and once inside, she sets out to find this project he spends so much time on. Upon searching, she finds the elevator shaft, taking her down to the secret Sister Location in early development, with only springlock prototypes. She explores the rooms, seeing prototypes of animatronics, even familiar animatronics, being built with new designs, a white and purple colour scheme. But there's one room that's different, one at the very back of the location. A room with a large mechanical arm, shaped like some sort of scooping device, with the scooped remains of prototypes strewn across the floor. And through her explanation, perhaps the machine was left on, maybe it was a mechanical malfunction, or even motion activated. But the machine strikes out at Afton's wife, and we all know what happens when the scooper hits the human body. Sometime later, Afton returns home, going down to the basement and finding the remains of his wife. He grieves for ages, distraught over the loss of his wife, and even if he had neglected his family, he did still love them. At the height of his sadness, he returns to this basement in anger, gathering piles and piles of wires and endoskeletons from the scooper that he had built and used to extract the endoskeletons of failed projects used for repurposing. Those said spare parts from the scooper were right where Mrs. Afton had died. Her blood seeped into the metal and fused with it. In his anguish, he builds Ballora, an animatronic purposefully built to look just like his wife, with the parts her body laid upon after the incident. He knew it wouldn't work, but it was all he had left. And by the way, if you think this is a strange thing to do, or out of the ordinary or anything, it's exactly what Geppetto does in the stop-motion Pinocchio movie after the death of his son. So, I mean, I guess maybe it's not as strange as you think, or at least there's another instance of something to back it up. Anyway, as he's walking away from his creation, he hears movement from behind him, and he turns around and sees that his creation is staring directly at him. He runs in terror, racing back through the vents into Circus Baby's viewing gallery, tearing open the little wiring cabinet underneath the control panel, making a hiding space just big enough for someone to hide inside of. He hides, hearing Ballora approach, until the silence is broken by a familiar sound. The music box he had given her so long ago, playing from the speaker in her chest. He exited the hiding place, confronting his creation. She said things like, "Why do you hide inside these walls?" asking where he's hiding from her. An empty tomb, referencing her final resting place, now empty. "Admit it, you wanted to let me in," and which he did. He was intrigued by his creation, no matter how terrifying it was. He knew there was something special about the parts he'd used, powered by the death of his wife. And this is my answer to FNAF's biggest question: why does William Afton start killing? After the death of his wife, and the creation of Ballora using the parts she had fallen on upon her death, her remnant infused into the machinery, creating life. And though he doesn't know exactly what it's called yet, he knows that there's something that's linking death, metal, and the creation of new life, remnant. Now this is the big reveal of my theory. Its credibility, shaky at best in some parts, but I think that I'm almost certain of the position of sister location in the timeline, or at least where it begins. I'm sure ID has figured it out all about when Michael discovers it, and if you haven't seen that video, go check it out, it is very good. But let's continue and make it a cohesive timeline with the rest of the story. So by this time, William is ready to trial Circus Baby's Pizza World officially, and on the first day, Elizabeth dies, getting too close to Circus Baby, which, though William initially built for her, he fitted with capturing and luring devices after the discovery of Remnant to collect more, causing the imminent closure of Circus Baby's Pizza World before it ever opens. He then takes his anger out on Henry, killing his daughter outside one of the locations, leaving her body in the alleyway, where her soul is absorbed by the security puppet. Shortly after this, nearing William's youngest son's birthday, his oldest son, Michael, puts him in the fateful jaws of Fredbear, causing the bite of 83. Now by this point, William has basically no family left and is pretty much done with sanity, and with Freddy's opening and the potential to be a huge success, he knows that he has a new place to start killing, with the potential to bring Henry's name down alongside his. There could also be one piece of evidence that supports MatPat's theory. He believes that Mrs. Afton is the new head of Fazbear Company, LLC, whatever it is after security breach. And I think that Mrs. Afton is Ballora. And though I disagree with the fact that MatPat says that Mrs. Afton is helping Afton, which just doesn't make sense to me, but maybe I'll rewatch the theory, it does line up with my theory in a way. In the first trailer of Security Breach, there's one song that we hear in the background, a remixed version of Crumbling Dreams, aka Ballora's theme. There was a lot of speculation about this at the time, but it was quickly dismissed as some sort of strange musical choice by Steelwall. However, if what MatPat thinks is really true, then maybe this was all on purpose, purposefully using Ballora's theme to signify her being the one behind all of this, Mrs. Afton. But that is just a theory, I don't know how much I actually believe it, I just thought I'd mention it. And there we have it, another super controversial theory to add to the hit list, and I may not be as diehard of a theorist as these guys, so I may not have another theory for a while, or even ever, but I thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one, wherever it may be. See you later.